What's going on, horror fanatics? I'm Marcus. Welcome to us Shop 6 Times YouTube horror movie channel. In this video, I will be giving y'all my spoiler review for I Know What You Did Last Summer 2025. I will be doing this review in a pros and cons type of fashion while discussing what was good and not so good about this legacy sequel. If you have not seen the film yet and want to avoid spoilers, turn back now as this video may not be for you at this time, but be sure to drop the video a like and come back here once you see the movie and let me know your thoughts. But if you have seen the film already or don't mind spoilers, shoot the video a like. It helps feed the YouTube algorithm. And if you are a new viewer of the channel, shoot that subscribe button followed by the bell icon for all content updates. So one of the first things that I enjoyed seeing in this new movie is how Southport has changed over the last 28 years since the original film. Once considered to be a blue-collar, small-town community, has turned into a city that is, as Tyler phrased it, the Hamptons of the South due to its more upscale way of life in 2025. I enjoyed this aspect because it shows the difference of two completely different eras in the location's history, and it shows how much Southport has evolved on the outer surface, while beneath it, things are still very much the same, if not worse than before. The influx of Grant Spencer's character as the local real estate mogul, along with more focus on the police department, added an extra layer and was a nice tie-in to fans pointing out over the years how lackadaisical the cop driving Helen Shivers was in the original film by having Grant have these cops in his pockets to gaslight and cover up whatever incident, including murder, took place in Southport. This was a welcome change because it gives us more characters outside of the main friend group to pay attention to. It doubles down on the do anything to keep a secret narrative while also expanding upon it with these characters who are authority figures who control the narrative in Southport, not just keeping it reserved for a group of friends making a terrible mistake, while also serving as a silly touch of subtle irony because Julian Ray, at the end of the first film, lied to the cops in regards to why Ben Willis came after them, Barry, and Helen to cover up the secret of what they did the previous summer, only for Grant and the cops to attempt to erase their past anyway, so it wouldn't have even mattered if they told the truth or not. Basically, the entire town is a whole new character in itself that has plenty of secrets and stories to tell, not just a select group of friends from the town like in the original. Another pro for me was the sound quality in regards to hearing the boot steps from the killers as they go after their victims. I thought that aspect of heightening the sound of the killer's steps was fantastic because it was authoritative, it sounded menacing, and it added more nuance to the fisherman's mystique. I also thought that we got some really cool shots in this movie of the fisherman, even though some of the shots were from overtly predictable moments in the film. The shots themselves still looked really good. If I had to choose a favorite, it has to be the statue pose shot that leads into Teddy's attack scene. I also thought the score overall was pretty solid as well, especially during Wyatt's death scene. I wish they would have used that one more as the score for the entirety of the movie for the other scenes, but that's neither here or there. Regardless to what, cinematography and sound quality were the strongest parts of the movie in my opinion. The reason why I had fun with this film despite certain things in the storytelling department that was lacking is the character of Teddy, aka Theodore Spencer, Grant's entitled somewhat douchebag son, who was the reason why the accident took place. Outside of being the reason behind the accident happening, I had a blast with this character. I felt his douchey yet goofy persona was well needed and was utilized at the right moments, and he was the only one out of the friend group whose sense of humor that I really bought into, and I feel like he is the best and most believable character out of these newer characters based on who he is supposed to be. The character also had some of the best character development out of the new characters alongside Stevie, as we actually get an in-depth look on why he is entitled by following how his father erases whatever mistakes that he has made. But beyond that, we see he's really a decent dude at heart, as he not only saved Danica in the middle of the movie, but he wasn't an over-the-top jerk when it came to the friend group either. He seemed to genuinely care about his friends, especially Milo, which in my opinion is a stark contrast to Barry Cox's character in the original film. I know some fans think that Teddy is a bigger douchebag than Barry was, but that is simply not true. Y'all must have forgot that Barry literally choked Julie James into agreeing to never mention her secret again. Barry sits comfortably on his throne as the ultimate tool of the franchise. I will even make the case that Teddy had the best piece of dialogue in the entire film in his interaction with Ray, when Teddy says the line, "Why don't we just get the keys to my boat and fuck off to the Bahamas for a while?" with Ray responding, "For reasons I won't get into, I wouldn't do that." A callback to "I Still Know What You Did Last Summer," and in my opinion, the best callback in the entire film because it served its purpose, unlike some of the other ones that we got in this film that I will discuss later on. Another aspect I like about the film, and it may be the best aspect written because it is subtle, would be the real reason why Ray snapped and decided to help Stevie without outright saying such. Now, it was explained by Ray during his killer reveal scene to an extent, but I don't think many fans caught on to how history repeats itself when it comes to these two characters. I believe the true reason Ray helps Stevie is because he sees a lot of himself in her. Well, at least a lot of his old self anyway. What I mean by that is both have similar backgrounds in regards to the younger years of their lives. Stevie's dad blew her college tuition and skipped out on her. Ray's father was only mentioned to be a fisherman, as he also skipped out on Ray. Both were considered to be outcasts of the respective friend groups, as both came from middle-class families, while their friends were from upper-class families. Both were involved in life-changing accidents that they agreed to cover up. Both would lose someone close to them in part to these accidents, just in a different way. Ray was accused of being a killer in the first film just based on being very suspicious and his secret of being Billy Blue and the Egan family connection and all that good stuff. Stevie turned out to be the killer in this film based on her connection to Sam Cooper, the victim of this new accident. So when you think about Ray's descent into becoming a killer and bringing the Slicker back, it makes sense that he would help someone who is a mirror image of who he was 28 years prior, which is why I think the dynamic and similarities between the two characters make this the best piece of writing the film has to offer in regards to connecting the past to the present. As a quick mention, I also enjoyed how we see some bruising on Stevie's nose, which would symbolize her being the one who attacked and killed Teddy, as Teddy had punched the killer in the face during that scene. If y'all are a viewer of this channel, then you know that attention to detail is key to me, because y'all know I cannot stand when horror movies have these masked killers who happen to be human beings get hard enough in the face to where when the mask comes off, there would be signs of that blow, only for them to come out unmarked. So good move on creative's end to show that bruising, because it makes that scene feel and look more authentic. To cap off the pros portion of the video, the mid-credit scene where we get the return of Brandy as Carla has to be the best scene in the entire film in my opinion. Now, I didn't like how Carla reacted to Ray being a killer while watching the news in this moment, because it lacked the true shock that I feel that the character would have had when finding this out. Yes, I know it plays into the film, not taking itself so seriously with over-the-top camp, but this is one of those moments where there should have been less camp and more seriousness because of who the character of Ray was, especially when you take into account Ray also saved Carla in the second film. But what makes this scene the best in the movie, in my opinion, is the fact that when we see Julie visit Carla dressed like an op on a top secret mission, she shows Carla a picture of them from 1998, with Carla's face being X'd out of it, with a note that reads, "It's not over." Regardless to how you feel about this movie, it gives fans something to look forward to in the follow-up film to this one, which gives off the feeling that we could be seeing more of Julie and Carla in the next movie, with a killer that ties into or is from the past. I will share more of my thoughts on this idea in a future video. On to the cons portion of the video and why this movie disappointed me after watching multiple times. The first thing that I will discuss is how the accident scene plays out. Now, I appreciate them switching things up and not completely ripping off of the original, but the truck getting stuck in a guardrail and the group trying to help get Sam out, though admirable, was not needed because we already knew that the truck went over thanks to the trailers. So having them do this took away the shock element and intensity of the accident, if you ask me. Another thing that didn't sit right with me was the element of Sam pulling Teddy's shirt through the window, which was a callback to the original when Ben Willis takes Helen Shiver's crown underwater, when it subsequently led to nothing. At least in the original, they paid off Ben, Jack, and Helen's crown by having Barry go underwater after him to retrieve it, while also showing that Ben was still alive. Another issue is the lack of character development and overall likability for these newer characters in this film, especially with our main final girls in Ava and Danica. Though there were moments I enjoyed Danica's character, there were definitely more moments where the character seemed too cheesy and unauthentic in regards to her dialogue and delivery of it. Add in the fact we don't get any real background on the character other than she was a former croaker queen like Helen Shivers was, and she hides her trauma from the accident better than the others. We really don't get to know much about the character beyond that. You can say the same for Ava. Though they do set up certain things for the character, like her mom passing away, her promiscuous behavior and wanting to feel punished sexually for her agreeing to cover up the accident, and the fact that she wasn't keen on moving back to Southport from wherever she is staying these days, they never really dove into any one of those setups for us to have a clear indication on who exactly this character really is. Not to mention the fact that she also just lacked the intrigue of wanting to follow this character, because I didn't feel her pain or trauma the way I felt for Julie's in the original two films. And for someone who is dubbed the new generation's Julie James, that is something that definitely needs to be fixed come the time of the sequel's release. Milo was a useless character in my opinion. He was very bland, and again, we got no character development at all from this character either, whatsoever. Plus, the way he delivered the line, "It's manslaughter, damn it," in regards to the accident was so cringe because it was delivered so soft and lacked the urgency, intensity, and realism of the situation that you would think you would hear in his voice when saying that line during an incident like that. At least you heard fear in Ray's voice when he spoke a similar line in the original film. Speaking of the dialogue from Danica, there were definitely moments in this film where you could hardly hear what the fuck she was trying to say, and then certain dialogue from other characters that was just stupid and unnecessary in the moment, all put in for the sake of trying to be funny when the fucking moment did not call for it. For example, the hospital scene where Danica is crying and she asks, "Does Wyatt dying make her a widow?" And Ava says to her, "Oh yeah, it does, but more like a hot widow." Like stupid shit like that. It was just unnecessary, dumb, ridiculous, egregious. All the fucking names in the book that is not positive. I understand that aspect is supposed to be what's fun and campy about the movie, but there are moments where it is not needed or wanted at all, to the point where it will have you looking how Ray looked when Danica brings up the Flua when they speak to him at his bar. It's cool to be fun and campy, but it has to be placed at the right times and moments for it to land properly. And there were definitely plenty of moments in this movie where the campiness just didn't land properly because of the timing of the usage. Some other cons for me was the lack of chase scenes, the inconsistent nature of how the fisherman attacks, and the kills. The chase scenes in this movie were very short-lived and lacked the intensity and aura that was captured in the first film with Helen Shivers' chase scene, along with some of the other chases that we got in the second film. Did I expect this film to top Helen Shivers' chase scene? No, that is a tough task to pull off within itself, but I did expect some type of resemblance to it that just didn't come to fruition. As for what I mean in regards to the fishermen being inconsistent with the attacks, I just felt like there were some moments in this movie where the fishermen started off hot and then went completely cold. For example, when they have Danica essentially dead to rights on the Croker Parade set piece, the fisherman raises the hook so slowly, clearly milking the time for Teddy to come in and make the save, which is something that you would see on an episode of Monday Night Raw, where we see a heel wrestler have a babyface wrestler compromise about to hit them with a chair, and they take forever to hit them with it because another babyface wrestler is on their way out to make the save. The point is that there are too many moments in this movie where the fisherman would start off the attack aggressively but not maintain it. Plus, the kills in this movie were pretty generic, nothing we really hadn't seen before, even though I will say Grant's kill was the best out of them all because it was actually the most creative one. Now, the biggest cons of the movie for me would have to be the utilization of callbacks, editing, and this god-awful dream sequence for Danica, where we get the return of sarahmichellegeller as Helen Shivers. First, in regards to the callbacks, there were so many that were misplaced in this film, all for the sake of nostalgia. It makes me want to barf after rewatching. All of the Helen Shivers Easter eggs were a complete waste. Why? Because it ultimately didn't tie into anything. It didn't tie into the story. It didn't tie into the killer's motives. Didn't tie into anything at all. they were a complete waste of time and were just there to be there. The sauna scene with Teddy only served as pointless and one of the worst editing choices I have ever seen on film because nothing happens in that moment. And then the scene cuts to Ava and Danica being trapped in a police station, Stevie trying to call everyone in the friend group, then back to Teddy at his house where he gets attacked and killed. Like seriously, who the fuck edited this movie? Speaking of editing choices, this scene where Stevie and Ray are talking outside of his bar, Ray has no sideburns and is far more tan than we see him in the rest of the movie. How these errors went unchecked is mind-blowing to me, and not in a positive way. Not trying to be an asshole, but somebody needs to fucking have their job questioned in regards to the editing department. The editing for this film and other aspects as well that I won't get into because it's just too much was downright fucking laughable. And I'm sorry, if they're going to do a sequel, one of the things they need to do is hire a better editor for that movie. As for the dream sequence regarding Danica's character where we see the return of Helen Shivers, this scene was absolute hogwash. It was literally added to the film only because director Jenniferkaytinrobinson and sarahmichellegeller are close friends, and we know that Jennifer wanted to add Helen Shivers in some shape, way, or form into this movie. Cronyism at its finest, people. Cronyism at its finest. Don't get me wrong, it was cool to see Sarah back in the role even for a brief moment, but this scene was so fucking stupid and misplaced, it hurts the legacy of the character in my opinion. The way Helen acted in this scene was nothing like what the character was in the original film, which is likable. Here she came off very unlikable and overtly bougie, which wasn't what we seen out of the character in the first movie. Sure, she had her bougie moments at the beginning of the first movie, but then we got to see a more normal, blue-collar side of the character after the accident takes place as the first film progresses. Add in the fact they literally referenced the worst film in the entire franchise to date, I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, by having Helen turn into a zombie-like demon in the fashion of urban legend Bloody Mary was downright laughable and phony. That was an ineffective way of remembering the character for who she was. But the most damning part about the nightmare sequence is that it was used for Danica's character instead of Julie's character, especially when we see in the movie that Julie still has flashbacks of seeing Helen and Barry's dead bodies on Ben Willis's boat. How I would have written this sequence if I was going to do a nightmare style sequence in regards to bringing back Helen and Barry's characters, which is another con in this movie in itself, is Barry not appearing in this movie outside of some photos and a gravesite, is during the scene where Julie has the flashbacks while she's at home sitting on her couch. Julie would be sleeping and I'd have Helen appear saying dialogue spoken in the first film, such as, "Let's just pretend we were never here," in regards to covering up the accident, with Barry appearing and screaming, "We take this to our grave, let me hear you say it," to where we see Julie wake up from the nightmare directly after hearing Barry's dialogue. Going in this type of direction would have been a far more effective way to incorporate Helen and remember her and Barry's characters in this film, and would have been a far more effective homage to all three original characters, along with the ending of the first film and Julie's story in the second film, where we get an in-depth look at her trauma through nightmares. Another glaring issue that I feel OG fans like myself have with this new movie is how Ray and Julie's relationship has folded over the course of 27 years since the last time we saw them, without having much reasoning or dialogue explaining what happened with the relationship. They do give a slight hint when Ray tells Julie, "You know what it's like getting mixed up with the wrong people," to where Julie replies, "Yeah, I do," in a very emotional way, as if that was a dig at Ray's character being one of those people, but they never delve deep into it. Outside of that, we get nothing in regards to what led them to not only divorcing each other, but also having so much hate and disdain for one another, especially when you consider the fact that Ray was obsessively in love with Julie in the first two movies. It's just really odd that they chose to have these characters go in this direction in regards to the relationship and how there is so much animosity between the two. One could say that Ray felt over the course of the years of being with Julie that she didn't care about his trauma, about what happened to them, the way that she cared about her own, but I just feel there is so much more to it that wasn't explained, and it's unfortunate. Arguably, the most glaring issue I feel the movie has is the fact that it is very noticeable that the ending of the movie was rushed and just downright sloppy. From the girls finding Milo's dead body in his car after discovering Teddy and Grant's bodies hung up by the docks for the town to see, to the pacing, you can tell they shot the ending recently, which has been confirmed by Madelyncline herself since the movie released, as she didn't even know Danica would survive up until the middle of June, where they shot the ending scenes for the film. The fact that they literally just shot the ending in June while having a July release date shows just how rushed the production of this movie was, which really hurt the movie when I go back and rewatch it, in my opinion. Because had creative been given more time to make the movie, I feel we might have gotten a completely different movie or a different ending at best. The killer reveals in this movie left much to be desired, and though I do commend creative for taking a big swing when it comes to having Ray, a returning likable legacy character, be revealed as a killer in this movie, both reveals were kind of weak in regards to the motive. Though I do like Sarah Pidgeon's performance as Stevie in the moment of her killer reveal, Stevie's motive was literally a direct ripoff of 1999's urban legend killer motive, so nothing new or nothing fresh. And Ray's motive, though it does make sense for his character, came off as flat because the true reasoning of his motive wasn't explained correctly, which I'm about to do for you guys. Ray was the ultimate hometown boy in the original two films because he loved the small town, blue-collar type of vibe that he knew Southport to have. Yet over the years, he literally watched the town change from blue-collar to upscale. But what he also witnessed was the town that he loved become a place where burying dark secrets, including murder, became the norm. He isn't upset that the town tried to erase what happened to him and Julie. He's upset the town he backed for so long, even when Julie was hesitant to return there in the second film, became what him and Julie was trying to move on from. A horrible secret. The town erasing Julie and Ray didn't cause Ray to harness his trauma to the point where he couldn't handle it no more. The town changing for the worse as a whole over the years is what made him snap, which explains the sign on his door, "Don't change Southport, let Southport change you," which is very poetic when you think about it, because the changes of Southport as a whole is what changed Ray himself. On top of the ending being rushed and the motive coming off as flat due to piss poor writing for both killers, the fact that we got no big fight scene between Ray and Julie in the end is downright blasphemous. Even how Julie finds out about Ray being one of the killers is downright blasphemous. The hell with the callback that we got in that moment. I don't want to hear about, oh, that callback was so cool. No, the fuck it wasn't. None of this was thought out properly at all, which is why we got the ending that we got and why it plays out the way that it does. But to have Ava kill Ray, or at least we think anyway, and not Julie after having a badass fight scene between the two is not only a missed opportunity, but it makes Julie James as a final girl look very, very weak. The fact that they did not capitalize on the two most notable characters, the two most notable stars of this film and of this franchise, having a battle when one is revealed a killer is garbage fucking writing. Or as us Cult of Cornet members in the wrestling community like to say, lazy booking. For all of the talk about bad dialogue earlier in the video, or this movie trying to be funny and moments that don't make sense for it to be funny, this one here is the cherry on the top, ladies and gentlemen. As our two final girls in Ava and Danica get out of the hospital, they decide to go get some chow and politic over the events that took place. First, we hear Ava say all of this could have been avoided if men went to therapy. Yup, sure, blame it on the man, why don't you? When it makes no fucking sense at all to do so, since it was one of your female friends who was the lead killer. But I digress. No, I don't digress. Speaking of that female killer friend, how nonchalantly Ava tells Danica that Stevie is alive as if that is not an issue is downright stupid, especially when she almost killed Danica on the boat. Oh, it gets better. Danica even questions if Stevie is a killer. Like, what the fuck? Did this chick forget the whole killer reveal? Or how she got stabbed with the hook? Or are them hospital meds so damn strong, it's making these two sound like complete dipshits in this moment? Somebody please tell me, because I can't figure out which one is accurate. Either way, the dialogue is stupid, it's tacky, and if anything, the writing of this dialogue devalues Stevie as a killer even more because you turned her reveal as a killer into a literal joke. Great fucking job. So after rewatching this film 3 times in total, I feel like though it is still a fun watch to a degree, the obvious bad writing choices, dialogue, and lack of likable characters really brought the movie down for me after the first watch. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind campy slashers that are meant to not be taken seriously. I grew up on them. But you can still make a fun campy slasher that has a great story and good if not great dialogue and characters, something that this film lacks big time. I wish we would have gotten more on-screen time with our legacy characters in Julie and Ray, and more backstory as to how they have gotten to the point that they are in life with each other in this film. Our final girls are not the greatest choices in my opinion. I don't hate their characters, but I don't like their characters either. In all honesty, this film is more for the new generation of horror fans and more geared towards women, which explains why there is no final guy making it to the sequel. Not that it's an issue, but as someone who is a man who is also a big fan of the first 2 movies, I feel like they could have catered to both men and women, both old school and new school audiences, if they knew exactly how to write a movie that appeals to both demographics instead of targeting a certain audience. With that said, the mid-credit scene gives me hope for us OG fans that the sequel will do better by us than this film does if it ends up playing out how I envisioned it could, given what we see sent to Julie with the picture of her and Carla and the note stating that the murders are not over. But alright everyone, that is it for this I Know What You Did Last Summer 2025 spoiler review video. Leave a comment down in the comment section below with your thoughts and opinions on the movie. Did you love it? Do you hate it? Or is it in the middle for you? As well as let me know your thoughts on the mid-credit scene and let me know if it gives you hope that the sequel could be better than this movie based on what we see in that scene. Once again, I am Marcus and this is Asham 6 Times YouTube Horror Movie channel. Follow me on all of my social media platforms. Thank you all for watching.